Let's do it. Autopsy on the New York Jets. We got the Jets autopsy. Little prize picks coming up. We'll talk shouty shows in a little bit. But we did this last week with the Giants, the cause of death.
Yeah.
With the other New York team. Something we've done on the show the last couple of years. Explain what we're trying to do here. And then we'll maybe give the Jets, again, hope for the future.
Yeah, it's an autopsy. It's taking a look at the dead body that is the New York Jets right now and identifying what the cause of death was. Why is this team where they are right now? And then once we've identified why they're dead, well, let's put them back together again. Let's Frankenstein this thing back into a working franchise once more. And this is a perfect time to do it because the Jets have fired everybody. So we don't even need to make those calls. We don't need to, normally you got to be like, well, do we keep the head coach? Do we keep the GM? They're gone. We can just blank slate. Let's go. How do we rebuild the Jets?
Rebuild it from scratch.
Okay. The Giants, we determined the cause of death was hubris a couple of years ago, where they gave Daniel Jones a big contract and thought they were better than they were and led to some problems. What is the cause of death of the 2024 New York Jets football team?
Aaron Rodgers.
See, I think he's a symptom. I don't think he's a cause.
Woody Johnson.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, that's not good.
Ownership.
I have an interview.
Ownership is the cause of death.
I have an interview coming up.
Yeah. Maybe he needs hard truths. Speak truth to power.
Is this listen, I'm not shouty showing it with Aaron Rodgers is terrible and he needs to retire and all that. But we've learned a lot about the impact of the quarterback over the last few years. We've learned a lot about the without analysis of Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. We've learned a lot about these things through the years. And I think the quarterback just, is Aaron Rodgers coaching the defense and special teams? Absolutely not. But when the power, and so you're going to say he's the symptom. If the power grab or the power struggle was given to the quarterback and the Alan Lazards of the world come in and maybe that affects your special teams, do you see the trickle down on all this? The power was given to Rodgers. And for whatever reason, in his 40s, not the leader he was, I don't know what's missing. But a team that supposedly was just a QB away. And I heard other people say, oh, the Jets miscalculated. They thought they were getting elite Aaron Rodgers. I disagree. Even if they were getting 2022 Aaron Rodgers, which was a 8-9 Packers team or 9-8 Packers team, and he was okay. It was his worst season in about 7 years. Even if they were getting that guy, I don't think anyone was saying we need elite Aaron Rodgers to compete. They were saying we actually just need 2022 Aaron Rodgers because we just had a below-average Sam Darnold and a below-average Zach Wilson, and we had Tim Boyle starting football games for us last year. We have a good defense. We got good coaches. All we need is mid-tier quarterback play. And they're kind of getting that. They're getting mid-tier quarterback play.
Yeah.
But everything else has been dragged down, and I feel like that's just, is it all on Aaron? To a point.
It is kind of wild that, this team shouldn't be as bad as it's been, right? And you look at the upgrades that they made in personnel, you look at having Aaron Rodgers and how well he's actually playing on a throw-by-throw basis, it isn't catastrophic. Now he's coming off his worst game, I think, so that's not helpful. But it shouldn't have been as bad as it's been, even if you're not getting elite level of play from Rodgers.
Really quick, his worst game from our perspective with an old PFFI toward it, it wasn't his worst game statistically, and they put up the most points they've put up all season with 27. From our perspective, this was Rodgers had a dropped interception and a bad fumble late when they're trying to make a comeback, couldn't make the comeback, but the offense, this is one of their better offensive performances.
Right, but it was 6.3 yards per attempt, 180 yards, an objectively terrible performance from him relative to what he's been previously in the season. The point is, Rodgers hasn't been the problem, and the level of play he's had this season should have yielded better results, and it hasn't been. I honestly think, the problem is this was forced upon them. They gave up too much to get him. They could have played chicken with the Packers, waited on later. The Packers had no option. They wanted and needed to go with Jordan Love. Rodgers had already declared he wanted out. The Packers had no leverage either. The Jets blinked in that game and shipped off too much in the trade. They then acceded to everything Rodgers wanted in terms of let's go get his buddies in, which didn't help. And they didn't do the other thing which Green Bay had done the last couple of years, which is find somebody with enough strength to go head to head with Rodgers and say no, right? That was the one flaw, I think. So I think ultimately it all comes down to ownership. This is the one area where you can say, if this was it within Joe Douglas's remit, this is on him. But they went and found Rodgers' buddies, Nathaniel Hackett, instead of who will coach Rodgers hard, who will say what he needs to hear, not what he wants to hear. That's what they never got. So now it's like, okay, we can get rid of Nathaniel Hackett as play caller. We can bring in somebody else to do that. But there's still nobody there who's going to tell Rodgers this is what you need to start doing. I don't care what you like doing or what you want to do or what you think the offense should be. Here is what you need to do to get the best version of you right now. Because this is the thing that I think nobody probably appreciates. Rodgers is not playing particularly badly. I do think, however, that it's probably very difficult for Rodgers to get a handle on what he is now versus what he was pre-Achilles injury. Remember, this is why I maintain one of the most impressive things I have ever seen a quarterback do was when Peyton Manning rewired his entire brain on the fly in a couple of weeks at the start of that season when he started for the Broncos coming off that neck injury, right? And immediately he realized, I can't play at all the way I played in Indianapolis. I can't make these throws anymore. He threw a bunch of seam routes against the Falcons, I think, and they picked him off 3 times in the first quarter, the first half or something crazy. And he was like, this is like every pass I ever threw to Dallas Clark is no longer on the table, right? They're all gone. So he rewired how he played the game, and after that had 2 of the greatest NFL seasons the game has ever seen, with a guy like a completely different player than the one we'd seen in Indianapolis. I think that's the exception. I think even at Hall of Fame level, it's absurdly difficult for a guy to, on the fly, work out how he's physically different from what he used to be. So what I'm saying is, if Rodgers is different to the way he was before the Achilles, which it looks like he is, he's not the guy to work out, to diagnose that and figure out how best to play. Somebody else needs to be doing that. And I don't know that they have that person in the building.
I think you're hitting on something there. And then, look, I think there's a lot of moves that the Jets made that were good. I think there were good moves that didn't work out.
Yes.
Or the right moves that didn't work out. We spent this offseason saying, okay, the offensive line, what were the Jets the last couple of years? A very good defensive team that had quarterback issues, clearly, but also offensive line issues. How many times last year did we say, man, Zach Wilson's struggling behind this line. However, I want to know how bad Aaron Rodgers would be behind this line as well. They go get Tyron Smith, hedge that bet with Olu Fashanu in the draft as a backup and developmental player. They get the great Morgan Moses at right tackle. And when they've been out there individually, they've been okay. Tyron Smith's given up some sacks. I keep coming back to Rodgers on either side of the Matt LaFleur era. And I think that coincides with what you're saying.
Yeah.
His offense with Mike McCarthy, it ran its course. The production, Rodgers is always good throw for throw. He doesn't put the ball in harm's way a lot, but he also didn't make a ton of high-value type of throws for a few years, we'll say, just to oversimplify, 17, 18, and 19. 19's the first year with the LaFleur. There's a little learning curve. 20 and 21 is when it is unbelievable. He's MVP caliber, wins the MVPs. And I'm telling you, so much of that was Matt LaFleur. And we've learned more, right? And I don't mean to oversimplify this one, too, without analysis. What's Matt LaFleur's record without Aaron Rodgers? The last time we saw Rodgers, was it 8-9 or 9-8 in 22? But they missed the playoffs. The Packers have been better since he left. The Jets have been worse since he showed up. So I'm not trying to super simplify it to that point where it's all Aaron Rodgers. But if I were the Jets saying, okay, we've made this investment in Aaron Rodgers, it could go sour. How does it go sour? Well, he's old. He could get injured. He played 4 snaps last year. That's part of the risk. Now he's coming off the injury. What's the only way we could get the most out of Rodgers? I want somebody who is adjacent to LaFleur. That's Hackett, his buddy. Somebody adjacent to LaFleur when he had success. All right, we're going to get Lazard because he knows he's going to run the slant that he likes and he's going to back shoulder it to him a couple times. Fine. We're going to get Rodgers as comfortable as possible. Get him the pass protection. Most of the defensive personnel is pretty much the same if Hassan Reddick showed up to work this year. Pretty much the same defensive personnel. And they all got worse. And Rodgers, and the comfort level that you got for him and trading for Devontae Adams, and none of it worked. None of the stuff that you did, which anyone else in that situation would probably do, none of it worked. So how much blame just comes on the one position in sports where we know, I'm not saying wins and losses in a 5-game sample mean something, but over time, it all comes down to that QB. And I think Rodgers ends up deserving a ton of blame. Like, is the defense worse and the special teams worse and the offense worse because of him? Like, all the offensive issues are him. Has to be. Not because of how he's playing, but because everything was built around his needs and wants, his scheme, his system, his coach, his players. That all has to come down on him. The fact that the offense is the same it's been under Zach Wilson.
Worse.
Is it worse now?
Arguably, yeah. So, okay, let's start putting this back together again. The first move has to start with hiring a general manager. And this is where you need to pick up on the cues, put on a hoodie, and start wandering over there.
Is it time?
Yeah. So, look, there's going to be several available general manager candidates. I think that the best candidate might be Ray Agnew from the Lions. So I think I've been a big proponent of hiring these big positions. Because, look, nobody knows, right? When it's head coach, GM, nobody knows who the good candidates are. I'm a big fan of hiring from within smart organizations because they probably run deeper than the guy at the top. They probably run pretty deep in terms of top-level people. The Lions have been probably the exemplary example in recent years of rebuilding a franchise from scratch, starting from the ground up. Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, they've been incredible. Ray Agnew was hired from the Rams with Brad Holmes. He's his assistant GM. Ray Agnew would be my guy. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.